Specifically, when you write in the book, I remember when I met with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, I'm sure he underestimated me. That, as I understand, is now being removed from the book at your request.
Yes, when I became aware of that, we changed the content, and the future editions will be adjusted. And, I appreciate that. I've met with many, many world leaders. I've traveled around the world. I should not have put that anecdote in the book. And at my request, they have
that
removed
specific
it.
meeting didn't happen?
I'm saying that I'm not talking about that meeting. I'm not talking about my meetings with world leaders.
But you
there's
do
some
talk
that are
about
in the
meetings
book.
with world leaders.
There's some that are in the book, and then there's some that's not in the book.
I mean, sure, the Kendrick and Drake beef is tasty. But did you see the recent face-off between possible Trump VP candidate / sociopathic dog hunter versus CBS morning hosts? It had everything from ghostwriters to fake friends.
I've asked them to change the content, and it will be removed.
It's a simple question. Did you or did you not meet with Kim Jong-un?
That's the answer that I have for you, is that it will be adjusted, and as soon as I became aware of it, that content was removed.
You sit on a throne of lies.
It's been a tough week for arguably one of the most disliked politicians in American politics at the moment. Nothing will unify the country, both left and right, than somebody who touts proudly about their ability to put down dogs. Over the weekend, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem discussed her new book in which she suggested that President Joe Biden's dog Commander should suffer a similar fate to the working dog that she shot on her farm. She is, as we know, at the top of a list of potential 2025 day one priorities in her book, quote, No Going Back. As one of the top priorities, yes, you heard that right, she wrote that Biden's dog Commander should be nowhere near the grounds. To which Face the Nation host Margaret Brennan interjected, are you saying that he should be shot?
You talk multiple times about it. In fact, at the end of the book, you say the very first thing you would do if you got to the White House that was different from Joe Biden is you'd make sure Joe Biden's dog was nowhere on the grounds. Commander, say hello to Cricket. Are you doing this to try to look tough? Do you still think that you have a shot at being a VP?
Well, number one, Joe Biden's dog has attacked 24 Secret Service people. So how many people is enough people to be attacked and dangerously hurt before you make a decision on a dog and what to do with it?
Well, he's not living at the White House
That's
anymore.
a question that the president should be held accountable to.
You're saying he should be
that's
shot?
What the president should be accountable to is what is the number? And I would say about Republicans criticizing me, these are the same Republicans that criticized me during COVID. They've criticized me when I've made other decisions in South Dakota to protect my state. And my state today is extremely happy and thriving. We're doing well. We've got thousands of people moving to our state because they love the opportunities that are here and the businesses that have come, and how we've gotten to be a state that has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the nation. Everybody has an opportunity for higher wages. We've got revenues and reserves. We paid off our debt. We've got a AAA credit rating. We've got a fully funded pension system. We were the first state in the nation to
So you're not going
really
to retract the book
and to prevent China.
Governor?
This book is a powerful book. It's an honest book. It's an honest book about blueprint for America of what citizens can do here to take their country back.
Okay.
And I'm so proud of this book and what it will bring to people. I hope that they will buy it. They'll find a lot of truthful stories. And we talk a lot about what we can use as an example from Donald Trump on how he has continued to be a real person, been genuine, and been honest to people. And that what bothers me the most about politicians is when they're
parts
fake.
of it.
I'm not retracting anything.
Okay.
I'm not retracting anything.
Is this a case study in what not to do if you want to be considered for vice president?
Jessica, good to be with you. Actually, it may be, but I also think it's a case study in where my former political party is. Look, I served with Kristi Noem. She wasn't this way 8, 9, 10 years ago. Every one of my former Republican colleagues, Jessica, has learned to be like Trump, to be cruel, to lie, to never, ever apologize, to never back down. She's trying to be like Trump. If I shoot my dog, if I say that Biden's dog should be shot, that's a really tough, cruel thing to say. And that's what Trump says. And that's what the Republican voters want to hear. They've all, sadly, all of my former colleagues, Jessica, have learned from Trump. They've all learned to imitate Trump because Trump's gotten away with it all these years.
This is just such an extreme version of that. to talk about shooting animals and think that gets you a stamp of approval.
You're exactly right. I think this is, look, she went a step too far. This was Kristi Noem thinking, I'm going to thump my chest and I'm going to come across as a badass, cruel person who shoots my dog and never backs down and never apologizes for it. She went too far.
And if that wasn't enough to alienate most people with a beating heart, onto more policy-related matters. She was then pressed on CBS this morning regarding an alleged meeting with North Korea's Kim Jong-un, a passage that she discussed in depth in her book, only to then have it taken out. And honestly, just listen to the verbal gymnastics when she is pressed on whether or not she actually did meet with a North Korean dictator. And instead of admitting to the fact that she just is caught in a lie, she brought up other unspecified meetings that she had with world leaders as though it somehow justifies fabricating this story.
We don't want to talk about a lot of the topics that you address in the book, but the book is called No Going Back, but it sounds like the publisher Center Street is going back on a couple of the details in the book.
Oh, I don't believe so.
Specifically, when you write in the book, I remember when I met with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, I'm sure he underestimated me. That, as I understand, is now being removed from the book at your request.
Yes, when I became aware of that, we changed the content, and the future editions will be adjusted. And, I appreciate that. I've met with many, many world leaders. I've traveled around the world. I should not have put that anecdote in the book. And at my request, they have removed it.
That didn't happen?
I'm saying that I'm not talking about that meeting. I'm not talking about my meetings with world leaders.
But you
there's
do
some
talk
that are
about
in the
meetings
book.
with world leaders.
There's some that are in the book, and then there's some that's not in the book. Many
but why
of them
are there
actually.
two specific mentions of meeting Kim Jong-un and talking about him, and a specific memory? I'm sure he underestimated me, having no clue about my experience staring down little tyrants. Did you tell your ghostwriter to write that?
I specifically have worked on policy for over 30 years. And over that time, I have traveled around the world, and I have met with leaders around the world. And that anecdote, I've asked them to change the content, and it will be removed.
It's a simple question. Did you or did you not meet with Kim Jong-un?
That's the answer that I have for you, is that it will be adjusted.
Now, here's the thing. To most of us that uphold integrity regarding somebody who holds public office, things like this would disqualify a candidate, or at least have them think twice about not only having them be an elected official, but possibly second in line to running the country. It would be quite the put-off. But for the MAGA contingent, those who willfully subscribe to a man who tells more lies in the space of 5 minutes than most do in a lifetime, it's just water off a slayed dog's back to them.
Let me just ask you, if Donald Trump becomes a convicted felon because of this case, will that affect your support for him for president?
Well, if he becomes a convicted felon in this case, that's just a travesty of justice. Because as I just said, when you've got a business filing error that is for something that was, again, it's not illegal to pay people for non-disclosure agreements. That happens all the time. I'm sure this network and others have done that. So that's not illegal. And then you've got again, they're trying to do this. And the only reason this trial is happening right now, it's the only one that could actually be brought forward. The other three of the four couldn't be brought forward before the election. So this one is largely intended to try to achieve a result before the election, and then you can be assured, as Americans would know, that any kind of appeal would be pushed until after the election. So that's why everybody sees this as politically motivated. And like I said, if filing error is not something that would affect any American, people that are trying to put food on the table and gas in the car, it doesn't affect them. And so it is. This is why the outcome of this trial is not going to change a lot of people's minds. It might actually, in some ways, help President Trump, because it reinforces the idea that the Biden administration is willing to use lawfare to try to attack a political opponent.
There's no evidence that Joe Biden has anything to do with this case brought forward by District Attorney Bragg. And you keep describing it as a filing error. I guess that's one interpretation. Another interpretation is that Donald Trump's attorney, Michael Cohen, paid hush money to hide from the American people before the election the fact that Mr. Trump had a rendezvous with a porn star, and that they wanted to hide that from the American people until after the election. So far, the evidence that I've seen suggests there at least was some political motivation to this, and they hid it so as to hide that from the public. That's a little bit more than just checking the wrong box on a form.
They'll care not that she brings up having the bravery to put down innocent animals, or lies about meeting with dictators to make us seem tough. And they'll chalk it up to her having the courage to make up said lies for the greater good of the country.
Step by step, you're losing it. But Mr. President, your thoughts on the unionization that's happening down south, the interest that we're seeing in Tennessee with Volkswagen workers, it seems like it's catching on. It's not just a Detroit thing.
Well, it could be happening. I mean, it's going to be happening, but you got to be very careful about what's going to happen in 2 years from now when China wants to take all of the jobs, because frankly, then union or non-union, everybody's going to be hurt.
Just a little bit of some information, some fact-checking. According to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, our state, Michigan, actually gained 24,000 manufacturing jobs between January of 2021 and May of last year. That's actually tied for 7th in the country. And so this notion that the auto industry in Detroit is falling apart and that we need Mr. Trump's help may not be as on point as he would like or some of his supporters would like.
So yes, let's call to attention the abomination that was these past two interviews involving the governor of South Dakota. But do not expect the MAGA crowd to distance themselves from the likelihood of her being VP. Lies matter not to them as much as innocent dogs matter to this vile, reprehensible human being.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.